Yay Networks.
A quick note before we dive into today's podcast. If you like what you hear, I would love for you to subscribe to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, wherever you download your podcast. It would also be incredible if you take a minute to rate and review this podcast. Those things do matter and they really help us. I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. All right, y'all, we have a lot happening in this week's episode. We are getting closer and closer to the kickoff of our annual Alcohol Free for 40 challenge, which I'll share a little bit more about in just a minute. And we're also right in the thick of carnival celebrations, and Mardi Gras is in full swing. So I thought it'd be perfect timing to talk about Surreal. And Surreal is a type of a beer. It's a non-alcoholic beer. And before you're like, wait a second, I don't like those, I would say you've got to try this. It's really delicious. Also, unlike most non-alcoholic beers, it's actually crazy low in sugar and calories. There's some of them that are as low as like 17 calories for the beer, but they're so full of flavor. They've got the hoppy ones, they've got the IPAs, they've got like a red IPA, they have a Kolsch. There's all these different varieties. The cans are super cool looking. You feel like you're having like this really specialty like craft beer, and that's what it is. It just also happens to be alcohol free. So I had reached out to Surreal Brewing for a couple of reasons. One, the Alcohol Free for 40 challenge. Again, we'll get into the details on that in just a second. Two, y'all, we have a book coming out this fall, a new book. It's called Craft, the Eat Fit Guide to Zero Proof Cocktails. And we worked with a local bar expert, Ethan Skaggs. We've worked with Melanie Warner Spencer. She's a writer, editor here in New Orleans. And the three of us pulled together the text content for this. Our Eat Fit Monroe dietitian, Hope Frugier, also happens to be an incredibly talented photographer. She did the photography for it. And then our Eat Fit Baton Rouge dietitian, Savannah Latimer, served as project manager. So we've been kind of working behind the scenes, pulling this book together. We are publishing it through Pelican Press. It'll be out this October. We went to our restaurants, our Eat Fit partners across the state, and we said, give us your best, your most impactful, your most special cocktail. What's kind of got that wow factor to it. And then Ethan reworked them. Okay, how do we make this Eat Fit? How do we make it zero proof? And so the drinks are some of these really just wildly cool, innovative, delicious, beautiful cocktails that you're seeing at these restaurants, flipped a bit, tweaked a bit so that they're zero proof and also Eat Fit, pulling the sugars. And so they're inspired by. So a lot of these, you may not walk into that restaurant and order that. After the book comes out, you might, but currently it is on there as a regular alcohol containing menu. We flip them, and that is what Craft, the Eat Fit Guide to Zero Proof Cocktails is. We also do a lot of education in there and how to do low sugar simple syrups and all of this stuff. And so one of the things that we have in there is a guide to some of our favorite spirits, our favorite non-alcoholic spirits, the zero proof spirits, the non-alcoholic wines, and also beers. And so that's when I kind of started poking around and I was like, let me see what else is out there besides either your regular non-alcoholic beers that just don't have a lot of flavor and they're still high calorie, high sugar. What else is out there? And so that's when I found Surreal and I was like, oh my gosh. So we have Surreal included as one of our top brew picks for our book Craft. And personally, it's my favorite, hands down. There's a bunch of varieties of it, a bunch of styles, and I love every single one of them. It's something that I try to always keep it stocked in our fridge. I just really find them delicious. They're refreshing. And, I keep talking about the sugar. It's not that we don't have anything with sugar in it, but if you're drinking something, there's enough other things that are going to have sugar or extra maybe processed or refined carbs are going to find their way in. So at least if it's something like this, we can, we have this option that it's a lower version of it and it's still really fantastic tasting. So I reached out to Surreal and I was like, hey, we love what you're doing. This is an amazing product. It's delicious. It's also nutritious. And how can we collaborate? So they're excited that they are featured in the book. And then when they learned about Alcohol Free for 40, they were like, absolutely, hands down, we want to support this in any way we can. So the co-founder of Surreal is joining me in just a bit, Donna Hockey. She and her husband, she was going to share the story basically behind Surreal, how it came to be. But she and her husband are co-owners of the brand. And they are offering our alcohol free for 40 participants a promo code. So even if you're not doing the alcohol free for 40, you still can see the promo code in our episode notes. That'll give you 15% off. You can order it from their website, which I have a link there also. So as this podcast is airing, we're still before the deadline. Depending on when you're listening to this, the deadline officially enter may have passed, but the gist of what you can still do it anytime though. Even if you're not officially doing it with us in that same window of time for 40 days, you can still do the alcohol free for 40 challenge. So here's the gist of alcohol free for 40. If you're going to give up alcohol for a duration of time, go ahead and make it your own self-experiment. And so that's what we encourage with it. And so we actually host kickoff events where we're doing these metrics for you. So you see that beginning status, and then we do it again at the end. So you've got your starting point, your end point, so we can truly see the change inside and out that is happening when you give up alcohol. So the labs that we look at, for example, just a few are going to be things like folic acid, B12, but also things like your liver enzymes, inflammatory markers. We're looking at glucose, triglycerides, lipid profile, a whole host of labs that our supervising physicians at Oxnard have guided that these markers can be influenced by alcohol consumption. And then the physical metrics we do a very close-up photo of your face so that we can see the texture, your if it's any kind of puffiness or the color or the texture of your skin, under eye circles, clarity of your eyes. We also do blood pressure and then body composition. So with that, we see weight. We also see muscle mass and fat mass. And then we do all that again at the end. So you go to alcoholfreefor40.com. You'll see there's 6 regions around the state that it's available. Click on your region. You'll see that you can click to sign up. It's $35, and that covers the cost of those pre and post. And we have an Alcohol Free for 40 Facebook group. And we've got it's just so much support, camaraderie, sharing of ideas. People kind of go there for accountability if they know they have something challenging coming up. So even if you are not in the Louisiana area to do this in person with us, you can still join the Alcohol Free for 40 Facebook group, kind of get that social support. We have Mindful Mondays every Monday for people throughout Alcohol Free for 40. So just a lot happening there. And again, even if you're not here, we still, if you go to the website, I told you, alcoholfreefor40.com, you can see all the labs that we do and all the physical markers. And so, talk with your physician and at least some of these can you do to track and see. I would love it if you can do all of these because each of them have kind of a different indicator. And even if you're like, oh, I get blood work done every year, like this is way different than the typical blood work that most people are getting every year. So if you're getting your blood work done each year, I can promise you're like 99% chance you're not getting this full spectrum of these labs. So take a look at this. It's very different, and it's specifically geared towards markers and indicators that are influenced by alcohol. So anyway, that is the gist of Alcohol Free for 40. I'm going to have actually our researcher, Amy Feehan, our research scientist at Oxnard. She joined me recently for a podcast on how to spot BS, junk science. She's going to join me coming up soon, and we're going to talk about the results and the just wildly significant improvement that we see with Alcohol Free for 40. It's just been really cool to have that data and see it. And then also the feedback that we get from participants and just how much it's affected and improved, how they're handling anxiety, their, interpersonal relationships, they're sleeping better, all this stuff. So anyway, Amy and I will be on to talk about that. So we'll dive deeper into Alcohol Free for 40 coming up, but it's just a really cool thing. So all of that brings us back to Surreal. So when I saw Surreal Brewing and I was like, wow, this is a beer that is very low calorie. It's very low sugar. It's my favorite tasting of any of the beers. Take the low calorie, low sugar aside. I love the way it tastes. So when I reached out and said, hey, we have a lot going on kind of in the same space where you are, Donna was incredibly gracious, and she is joining us today to share their story. Their story was Surreal Brewing and behind the brand, how this came to be, how 2 people who really didn't think they would ever be in the beer brewing business have successfully created this really innovative product that is spanning across the country and has quickly become the favorites in a lot of our fridges. So, with that, welcome, Donna. I'm excited to have you here. I am a huge fan of Surreal. I keep it stocked in my fridge as much as possible. So, I am so excited to learn more about you, the company, and just behind the brand.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you for inviting me. We love what you're doing in the community with health and with alcohol free for 40.
Yeah, and y'all's products, it fits in perfectly for this. That not only is it a non-alcoholic beer and it tastes really great, but unlike so many others, of course, the sugars are so low. And that was actually what first caught my eye. And I was like, wow, nutritionally, this is great. And then when I tried it, every variety, I actually brought the first time I got one of each from you guys, and actually several of each. And so I, iced them down and I brought them into my pottery studio. And it's mostly women in the 30s, 40s, 50s, but the studio instructor's son is in his late 20s, and he is like a beer guy, and he's an IPA guy. And so I had all of them laid out or spread out, and I had the little cups for everybody to try them. He was down for every single one of them.
Oh, that's
Loved them.
amazing.
Yeah, and he's not going for non-alcoholic beers. I mean, he's just drinking regular beer,
hmm
and he is like an opinionated beer guy. So I was like, wow, this goes. It was a broad spectrum who was in there tasting them, and it was a hit with everyone.
Yeah, we love to hear that. We're true to craft. We try to make it really flavorful, really complex, and very healthy for you.
Let's take a minute to talk about Ritual, one of our sponsors for this week's episode. Protein isn't just about building muscle. Protein also helps to support our bone health, that it keeps us feeling fuller for longer. And Ritual's Essential Protein is a great tasting plant-based protein powder with 3 distinct formulas designed to meet a variety of our protein needs. I like that Ritual offers a super flexible subscription service. It's also really easy to incorporate into our own daily rituals. The Ritual difference means that it is traceable. With their completely transparent supply chain, you can know the ins and outs of every ingredient. It's also sustainably sourced. Each blend is packed with 20 grams of protein per serving, made from sustainably grown peas, regeneratively farmed right here in the United States. And no added sugars or sugar alcohols. It's soy-free, gluten-free, and non-GMO. So if you're ready to shake up your protein ritual, you get 10% off during your first 3 months at ritual.com/fueled. Ritual even offers a money-back guarantee if you're not 100% in love. Visit ritual.com/fueled today for 10% off your first 3 months. So before we get into kind of like the how and why you and your family started Surreal Brewing, give us kind of a quick summary of like the variety and the scope. Like how many different flavor profiles, how many different varieties do y'all have?
Yeah, so we have 7 styles. We have 4 IPAs, 1 Kolsch, and 2 dessert beers. We dare to be different. And so, right from the start, we wanted a product that was not only healthy, but was different. And so, a lot of them are first to market styles. We have a red IPA. We were the first to do that one. We did a 17-mile porter after that. And then Juicy Mav's Hazy IPA, the Kolsch, and then we did a Creatives, which is a West Coast IPA, which wasn't the first to the market, but we did it with a really unique yeast. It's called the Kveik yeast, and it's a Norwegian strain that's passed down for hundreds of years through the farm communities in Norway. So we were really psyched to get our hands on that. And then our dessert beers, the pastry porter and the milkshake IPA, which haven't been done before. And everything is from 17 calories to 75 calories. And our core are just 17 calories to 50 calories with 0 sugar. We have 2 gluten reduced styles, and the carbs start at 2.8 carbs for our Kolsch.
And we should say the ones that are the higher calorie or higher carb are the dessert ones, right?
They are, and they're actually around the same amount of calories and sugar that you'll find in like other
Right.
brands IPAs.
Right.
So they start, some are 50, but a lot of them are 70 to 120 calories. And
Right.
so just because it's non-alcoholic doesn't mean it's healthy for
Right.
you. And we're one of the only brands that also are very transparent about our labeling and
Right.
nutritional panel. So we actually say how many grams of sugar we have on the panel, and you can't find that on other
It's
brands.
impossible. We
It,
have
yeah.
contacted many other brands, specifically contacted like the, customer service or the marketing, or as we're working on our book, we have this upcoming book, Craft, the Eat Fit Guide to Zero Proof Cocktails, that I mentioned in our intro, that you guys are featured as like one of our top picks for non-alcoholic beers. And as we were doing that, we're telling these companies, hey, we're writing a book on this and we're interested in including yours. Can you send us the nutrition information? Crickets. We got nothing from many of these. I was like, you can't, you maybe you'll see the calories and maybe carbs, but sugars, it's impossible, nearly impossible. And I'll say the milkshake dessert one, I feel like it has a little bit of like, it's kind of like a cream soda. If someone likes cream soda, I think that they would
Yeah,
really
I've
like that
heard
one.
that. I've heard that. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. A lot of people love that style, and it's different and unique, and still not too bad for you.
And the juicy Mavs. Well, tell us like again what the ones that are on the lower calorie, lower sugar range. What are those? Just so our listeners kind of hear the.
Yep, so let's do. There's two gluten reduced styles as well, and it's red IPA and the Kolsch. And then the other ones that are also zero sugar are the 17 Mile Porter, the Juicy Mavs Hazy IPA, and the Creatives West Coast IPA.
And when you look at normally a non-alcoholic beer, maybe 70, 90 or more, and again a lot of sugar. And so while I think anyone who listens to this, they know like I'm not a calorie counter, but I am very mindful of added sugars for a variety of reasons, that we don't want to have a lot of added sugars for our energy, for inflammation, for all of these things. When we're looking at where do we want our calories, we want our calories from quality nutrients that are really going to fuel us. We don't want it from the added sugar. So when we're looking at something like a non-alcoholic beer, if you're just having one and you really love another brand that's high in sugar and you have one here and there, then just enjoy it. But if this is something, especially like through the Alcohol Free for 40, and this is going to be something that's part of you're doing it on the regular, then it really pays to find something that you love the flavor of it. And the added sugars are either none or low. And so that's where something like Surreal comes in. So
Exactly.
talk with us about like how and why Surreal started. This is a really it was a fascinating story to me.
Yeah, so it all started with health. Health is just really important, and for me, I drink Surreal beers, throughout the day. I'll have one with breakfast as my second coffee. The 17 Mile Porter is perfect for that. I'll have something at lunch. I'll have it in meetings. I will have it after dinner, and maybe even in the evening when I'm doing work at the computer again after the kids go to sleep. So I don't want to be worried about that I've taken in a lot of sugar, or I've taken in, of course, no alcohol, but a lot of calories or anything else that's bad. We're all natural ingredients, non GMO ingredients. And so our focus on health came from the reasons how we got into creating Surreal. And it started with a diagnosis of breast cancer back in 2016, and the subsequent 1.5 years of successful treatment. We have three small kids, and at the time when I was diagnosed, they were 1, 3, and
Oh,
5.
wow.
Yeah, and after that, my husband and I decided that we're going to take this trip with them and just kind of celebrate life, that we kind of made it through this ordeal, this diagnosis, and made it to the other side. And so we went to 6 countries, and all along sampling their non-alcoholic beer products, and getting there and cheers, let's do this, open it up, and they were just really disappointing. And we felt again very excluded from being able to celebrate with a beer, which is a like international um, thing that's like culturally everybody does and looks forward to. And so,
Right. It's celebratory. It's the camaraderie. It's the
yeah,
unification of
yeah.
conversations. Yeah.
And there's a lot of great beers out there, the whole craft scene that exploded in San Francisco. So we were just really disappointed in what was out there. They hadn't been changed in 3 decades. in the non-alcoholic beer industry. And so we decided that it wasn't okay. There's a lot of people that feel the way that we do, and we just said, let's try to make beer. Let's try to make a non-alcoholic beer that we want to drink and
So
that others could celebrate with.
there was one that was sort of like that pivotal moment for y'all that you were like, we just can't take it anymore.
Yeah, we were in Indonesia. We were in Bali, and we went to a little shop and we saw some dusty non-alcoholic Guinness on the shelf. There were two left. And we couldn't believe, wow, this is awesome. We wanted to buy more, and we're like, do you have any more? No? All right. So we got back to the hotel, put the kids to sleep. We have those, dust them off, open them up. This is it. We're going to celebrate. This is it. And we poured them out. And I guess because of like the market flavors, they were very, very heavy sugar, syrupy beers. And I mean, that was it. We were like, I can't drink this. I mean, I'm not like, in retrospect, I'm not even sure that it was like a fermented product. It could have been just like
Right.
the wort with some additives. So yeah, that was like a pivotal moment for us. And it's not fair to be excluded like that. If you don't drink alcohol, that you can't have a really great tasting, healthy beer. It's just not fair.
I think I don't like thinking or feeling like I can't have anything.
Yes.
I may choose not to, but if you want it, you don't want to be told or feel that you can't have it. And so that was sort of like the catalyst. And you told me before that like y'all had already kind of thought like, is there something that we're passionate enough about to do on our own, to kind of branch out and kind of have that entrepreneurial spirit, but there wasn't something that you knew just yet what that was. And that sort of was that moment that you were like, okay, this is it. And if we're going to do it, now's the time to try it.
Exactly. Yeah, we talked about it on the plane ride, and it was one of those conversations where it's like very much, what if we do this?
Yes.
And you're not really going to go home and change everything that you do or quit your job or anything, but
you're talking all big right then.
yeah, of course. You're like really excited, really fired up. But yeah, I mean, we went that summer, and then we did kind of get home and start planning because we just got to R&D that September, trying to create a non-alcoholic beer.
So kind of to recap for our listeners, in 2016, you were diagnosed with breast cancer. You had 1.5 years of treatment. You did chemo, you did radiation, you did surgery, and y'all kind of had this journey of visiting 6 countries, taking your kids, and I would imagine that it's during that time, because at that moment, you're kind of stepped away from real life. You don't have all the normal day in and day out kind of distractions or pressures or fires you're putting out of just like your normal life at home. Like your mind can be a little freer and allows that space for an idea to come in like this. And 2 of my favorite words are what if. So like we have our Eat Fit cookbook. I actually start the introduction with that. My 2 favorite words are what if.
If,
it
yeah.
is. It really is. And with our Eat Fit team, like they know it. I'm like, if you've got and everyone knows, they're like, hey, y'all, what if we, and then sometimes
I love it.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's like, let's just entertain it, talking a little bit about going into this. So when y'all were traveling these 6 countries, y'all were tasting non-alcoholic beers, not just because of your diagnosis with breast cancer. And I just to kind of share, in case our listeners aren't aware, alcohol is such a huge contributor to breast cancer specifically. It affects our hormones. It affects how our fat is storing or releasing hormones. It affects all types, and our risk of breast cancer goes up exponentially with even 1 drink a day. And so, but that was actually, your breast cancer diagnosis wasn't why you didn't drink. You really weren't a big drinker before that.
That's right. I think this is an important question, especially around this time when people are doing alcohol free for 40. This question of why didn't you drink, or why don't you want to drink on this occasion? It's a big question, and you're going to hear this. Why aren't you having this drink today? And I think it's interesting because drinking is such a big part of culture, drinking alcohol. And it's funny how we marry those 2 words too. Drinking, I drink water every day, but that's not drinking.
Right.
It's all alcohol. We know what we're talking about.
Right. Do you drink? Right.
Sure, every day.
Right.
Don't you? How are you living? But everybody feels very kind of emboldened to ask you why you don't drink, why you're not drinking, and kind of press on. And one of the things we're trying to do, we really believe in the choice. We want you, if you drink alcohol or you don't, we want you to have that freedom of choice. So we're trying to also reduce those stigmas around it. I mean, some people, maybe they're taking a medication where they can't drink or they've had a surgery, but they're not going to want to tell an acquaintance necessarily, oh, yes, I just had this invasive procedure. But it's interesting that way. So be prepared for someone to ask you why, even though for me, I think the answer could just simply be, I don't feel like it. And it should be like, it should be that. But for me, um, alcoholism runs in my family. And so growing up, I've seen how it kind of can destroy lives. And so early on, I just decided that it really wasn't worth it if it runs in my family and it can kind of, destroy health, destroy lives. I just didn't really need to have it in my life. Um, and, I kind of thought, oh, well, I'm not going to have beer be a big part of my life and my kids growing up. But interestingly, ironically, it is a very big part of our family. But happily, it's the healthy kind. It's the non-alcoholic beer kind. So,
It's
yeah.
interesting, like what and you were, I think, really wise to learn from that experience. You actually had a close family member who died from complications of
That's right.
alcoholism. And
That's right.
I did too. On my dad's side, it is just rampant through the family. My dad had an aunt who died before I was born, or I was very, very little, if not, who died of acute alcoholism. And he had, brothers, all who struggled with it. In fact, I had an uncle who was an alcoholic and just an incredible guy. And when he wasn't drinking, he was a totally different person. And he ended up living on the streets for a large part of it. And then, shockingly, the way that he died, of all things, he was killed by a drunk driver.
Oh
And
my
it's
goodness.
like, wow.
Awful.
And on my mom's side, I had my mom's side, it was less prevalent, but I had one uncle who I was incredibly close with. And he drank. He was in and out of jail and drank heavily for about 40 years. And then the last 20 years of his life, he had gotten really involved with the AA. He had met some people who had this real tremendous transformation in his life. And then he truly paid it forward. I mean, he spent the last 20 of his years of his life leading AA meetings in prisons. And, he just always had people at his
Wow.
house and was a mentor to them. And he actually just passed away a couple of weeks ago. And, but it was like and his funeral was just spectacular. I mean, all these, grown, strong, like, like normally like burly kind of like guy men, like they were like, I mean, just couldn't keep it together because he had
Yeah.
had so much influence on their lives because he had brought to them, so I have so much experience of that family part of it. And so I do think it's, for some people, just knowing, okay, if it's strong in your family, you may have escaped that gene and you may not have.
Mm-hmm.
So just being
Right.
mindful of that, and kind of, and it, it may or may not change your behavior, but I think being mindful of that. I also want to share, I think this is interesting. So your husband had worked at Google. He had worked on autonomous vehicles and like he had a
Yeah.
whole separate career. You have your master's degree from Harvard in public policy.
Yes. Yes. That's right.
It
That's right.
it's kind of cool because like almost it's not public policy what you're doing with Surreal, but it's almost like public health and providing the service in a public health space.
Yeah, thank you. My focus has always been on working in communities for health and education. And so it does fit. I mean, it fits really well. And it's really important to both of us that we're kind of putting something out there that is healthy and that can, help people make better decisions that they want to make and have those options out there.
So while everyone may not have the luxury to travel to these countries and have a celebrate life trip as y'all did, I think it's a big thing for us to learn of like, what can we do even in the smallest of way that maybe gives us enough of that space to really dial into what's important to us, because that's what y'all did at that moment. That
Right.
seed was planted, you spent the next legs of your flights, talking about it. And then, once you got back home, okay, like how do we do this? Like one huge issue was that y'all had never brewed beer before. So you're like, where do we start?
Exactly. Yeah, the trip was crazy. We hadn't been on vacation for a long time. We just were super busy. And honestly, it's like, what if breast cancer comes back? What
Right.
if, like, let's
Yes.
take this moment with the kids, and some of them might not remember it at
Right.
the time, but this might be our only
Yes.
moment. And so we just tried to seize it.
Yes.
Yeah, the problem of never brewing beer before. Yeah, so we thought like the first place to start was to kind of ask some experts, and so we head up to a college nearby, and the brewing program, and so we sat down with um, a couple of them, and basically they said if you're not going to get a machine and distill it out, then it can't be done.
Distill
And
out the alcohol
healthy,
meaning.
distill out the alcohol, and healthy and all those other things. I mean, you just be lucky to get it non-alcoholic. And so, yeah, he didn't even want to take any money or anything for like consulting. He was just like, you can't do it. And so, being my husband and I, we were just like, what? Can't? Won't? What?
Right.
I mean, we needed to have this non-alcoholic craft beer, and so we just went back to the brew science. I mean, we just were even more fired up, and we went back to the brew science and started R&D in our kitchen. And we worked for 9 months to come up with our first non-alcoholic beer, which is our flagship red IPA, which happens to be the one that's gluten reduced and 0 grams of sugar and 33 calories, something different that hadn't been done before, kind of pushing the boundaries of the NA industry, and launched in June of 2018.
What was cool, and in one way, it's like overwhelming as hell that like you'd never had this experience, and like you have this big idea, you're pretty sure it can be done, but at the beginning, you have no idea how it can be done, but you're determined to see I'm sure at that moment you're like, if it can't be done, we want to be sure we've tried every avenue to explore this. And then, but before you're just throwing in the towel.
Yeah, I think part of it was that we were looking at it from a fresh pair of
Right.
eyes. And
Right.
so we didn't have a lot of brewing knowledge, and we didn't know what couldn't be done
Right.
specifically. And so we probably did a lot of things that you wouldn't do. And that's how we came up with our proprietary process.
I think it's one of those where there's a lot to having that expertise. But if it is something that's never been done in that way before, then like you said, coming at it from that new perspective, you don't have those traditional ideas or that mindset of like, that's impossible. You're looking at everything with fresh eyes. And so for those who listening who also don't have the brewing experience, the home brewing experience, talk to us about like, what are the main ingredients and just even like traditional beer?
Sure. The main ingredients are water, malted barley, hops, and yeast. And that's exactly what we use as well. There are a couple of ways to make non-alcoholic beer that are very popular, and one of them is to brew a alcoholic product and then use a machine to distill out the alcohol, which heats up the beer. The other way is to stop fermentation, and so there's a process where the yeast is fermenting the beer to make alcohol, and there's this other way is to stop the fermentation at a certain point, and then it kind of leaves the beer with a residual sweetness and extra sugars, and can be kind of a warty product. Wort is just the mixture of the brewed beer before you add the yeast. So what we do is a different way. We want to make sure that there's not a lot of residual sugar in there, and so we kind of stumbled upon and kind of we went back to the brew science and to the books, to kind of really learn everything about it. And we have a fully fermented product using those ingredients: the water, malted barley, hops, and yeast. And we don't add sugar for flavoring, or kind of like unnatural adjuncts. Sometimes we use vanilla, natural ingredients to get a specific flavor, like our pastry porter.
So just to kind of, because I had to wrap my head around this, because I was like asking you, I'm like, okay, how is non-alcoholic beer traditionally made, and what's different about how Surreal does it so that it's still non-alcoholic and also low sugar. So water, hops, malted barley, yeast, those 4 ingredients, traditional beer. Those same 4 ingredients are a non-alcoholic beer. And when that one process where you're going to stop fermentation partially along the way, that process of fermentation where the yeast is digesting, the longer that fermentation goes and the yeast are digesting those carbohydrates, the lower that sugar is going to be. And so
Correct.
and that's also what forms the alcohol. So also, I guess if you're thinking about like wine making and you think about, you've got all these grapes, you've got all the sugar of the grapes, the longer that it's in the barrels, the more that it's fermented, the sugar really comes down in wine. People, red wine is very low sugar, like 3 grams or whatever in a typical glass. But of course, the alcohol content is there. So you're sort of like the yeast is digesting those sugars, bringing the sugars down, but the alcohol goes up. So when Donna is saying that one way that people do it is they stop that fermentation early in the brewing process, that means the alcohol isn't formed, but it also means that sugar is still there. The other way would be, okay, you're brewing a fully alcoholic beer. I don't know that that's how something like a Heineken does it, but it would make sense that Heineken may say, okay, we're going to brew our regular Heineken, and then we're going to distill it, and that's our Heineken 0.0. We're not saying that's how they do it, but in theory, like that's what a company that would brew a fully alcoholic beer, and then they're distilling the alcohol out. So, and often you still have that higher calorie beer. And as you said, when you're distilling the alcohol out, you mentioned that it's heated. Does that change any of the properties of the beer?
Yeah, it changes a lot of the flavor kind of, also with the hops, and they're not as bright. And so people do add back things. There
Okay.
are a couple of other ways to make non-alcoholic beer and different things that people add or brewers add back into it.
I think it's also worth mentioning, Donna, talk to us about the kind of the nutritional profile or benefits too of the non-alcoholic beers.
So a lot of people don't know that non-alcoholic beer, well, beer in general is really good for you with the hops and the barley. There's a lot of polyphenols. There's anti-inflammatory properties. There was a German study done that it reduces chances of respiratory infections in German athletes. And so a lot of Olympians will drink non-alcoholic beer. When you have alcohol and sugar, it negates all of those great things, all the B vitamins, all the things that you're getting to rehydrate. It will negate it. And so that's one of the ways that you can really nourish yourself is by drinking non-alcoholic beers with low sugar, zero sugar, and get all of those properties.
The antioxidant benefits there and the B vitamins that you mentioned.
Exactly. Beer is really complex. There's a lot of different things going on and different reactions. And I think that's a good way to kind of sum it up. But there are a lot of different things going on as to why you get your finished product the way that you do.
So if you're looking to start brewing beer at home, don't think that the way I just said to do it is going to get you a good beer, is what you're telling us. So that's sort of an oversimplification, but just helps us understand like the basics of it. But yes, there's like so much more to that's just a drop in the bucket of the R&D that's going into it. So thanks for that clarification. I'd like to take a minute to talk about Nutrafol, sponsor for this week's episode. The nutrients and Nutrafol supplements support healthy hair growth from within by targeting the 5 root causes of thinning: stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, and metabolism. Nutrafol is a physician-formulated nutritional supplement that's made with potent botanicals. So no matter your stage in life, Nutrafol has a solution. Nutrafol offers targeted formulas for women and men that are clinically shown to improve hair growth and thickness through all stages of life. It is possible to grow thicker, healthier hair and support our show by going to Nutrafol.com and entering promo code FUELED to save $15 off your first month's subscription. This is their best offer anywhere, and it's only available to U.S. customers for a limited time. Plus, free shipping on every order. Get $15 off at Nutrafol.com. That's spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code FUELED. So with Surreal, the process is fully fermented, but you're not sharing. It's y'all's proprietary secret, and you're not budging. You're not sharing any of that, and I totally get it. But y'all have a process along the way to say it is fully fermented. You have those full flavors. You're doing different, approaches and kind of modifications along the way that ensure that the finished product is less than 5% alcohol. And we're just going to say that's magic. How that happens is magic in there. And then the quality of the ingredients, it's all non-GMO, mindful sourcing. And you design, so if you haven't seen Surreal, take a look at the website. We also have our code, our promo code that gives y'all 15% off. And we'll link to that promo code on the podcast episode notes. But poke around at the website. You'll see the different styles that Donna was talking about. The labels are really cool. And you've designed those labels yourself?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, they come from inspirations. We have a couple of things that we're doing. We're trying to kind of reduce the stigma of holding a non-alcoholic beer. We're also encouraging people to get outside. In addition, there are really a lot of these beautiful places that we support the preservation of state parks. And so you'll find some of these places on our labels. It's all done with that in mind. Take for instance, there's some of them have stories, so you can kind of tell. The Juicy Mavs Hazy IPA is at the Mavericks Break in Half Moon Bay, and it's a place where there's these huge waves that are like 20, 30 feet tall, and once a year they hold a contest there, and they invite surfers from all over the world, and you don't know exactly when it's going to be. They just watch these waves to see when the perfect set is coming in, and then everybody flies within 48 hours from around the world to go to this place and surf these waves, and there's a big contest and festival. And so that's one of the stories on the cans, and you can kind of go to different places. There's the chandelier redwood tree.
That's
Redwoods
cool.
are these amazing trees, and lots of places to visit and think. And you had mentioned something about, in place of taking a large trip, what can you do for yourself? And it's really, take this time to enjoy a great craft beer in a place that you love, and not have the alcohol, not have the calories, not have the sugar, whatever that is, whether that's being in the park, supporting a national park, spending time with the people you love, all these things. I try to, like, when I'm drawing the art, try to kind of incorporate all these ideas in there so that you can have a really great experience.
Are you freehand drawing this like on paper, or is it digital?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. It's on paper and then it's converted.
So you have a really strong art skill set as well. Like, I mean, that's really cool.
I enjoy it.
Yeah. No, you're being very modest. That's really cool. The cans look amazing. The cans look like, so anytime I pass by, we'll talk about distribution and where people can find it in just a second. But when I'm walking through grocery stores and I'm looking at all the craft beer section, I often still look extra close to see if I see Surreal there, because the cans and so many of these craft beers, they're just so fun, and they're just interesting and fun and cool looking, and like, they're very artistic, and that Surreal is exactly like that. And so I always am looking again, like, is it here yet? To see.
Hopefully it will be.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
look.
we're craft through and through, from the
Yes.
outside to the inside.
It's a beautiful label, and I love what's inside, and the outside is cool. And to know that
Thank
you're
you.
designing those, drawing them like freehand, that's really cool. So as we're talking about, like, okay, you had this trip in 2017. By 2018, your first product is going to market. Like, that's fast.
That's right.
And so over the 4 years since then, you guys are in certain Whole Foods locations, kind of in pockets around the country. If you don't see it in your location, ask for it. And
Definitely.
Total Wine, y'all are in Total Wine
Yeah.
nationwide.
So Total Wine was one of those stores that saw the non-alcoholic craft as something that people really wanted right away. And so we launched in 2018. We launched the product in June, but in August we went nationwide with Total Wine, and
Wow.
we've been there ever since with our other styles. So yeah, you can find us at Total Wine.
I mentioned to you when we kind of had our pre-interview huddle, I'm going to reach out to Total Wine in Louisiana and ask if there's a way that we might have some sort of a promo for Surreal with alcohol free for 40. And so those of y'all listening, I'll put it in the podcast notes if by the time this podcast drops, that has come to fruition. If you don't see anything about it, or we don't, you don't hear anything more about it, it didn't go through, but I think that would be really cool. And then Natural Grocers, the brand Natural Grocers, some location of that, and then lots of independent grocery stores. So it's also one of those, would we say that if someone shops at maybe kind of a smaller local grocery store, that they could ask for it?
Yeah, I mean, ask for it wherever you go. We are talking to a lot of people. We're at some Safeways, at some Kroger, Fred Meyer's.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different places, but definitely ask for it. Yes.
Great. And anything next on the horizon exciting that you can share with us yet?
Well, we're always doing R&D, and so we're probably going to have a couple of new styles coming out that are really exciting. We're always talking to retailers and restaurants. We know that it's really important to have that variety, and we have those 7 styles that range in all the varieties. And so it's really important for us to make sure that we're listening to customers and everybody what they want to have in the market and what they want to enjoy. And so we're constantly having those talks. Being one of the first non-alcoholic craft breweries, we were able to kind of start to shape some of that dialogue, and there's been this big education piece for retailers and distributors. And so it's important for us to kind of like help kind of guide this whole process along, to have a lot of variety of non-alcoholic beers for people.
I love it. I think it's just incredible. And then and my mind is already going, I'm like, ooh, restaurants, bars, festivals. There's just like so much opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And we think that you should be able to choose a non-alcoholic craft beer if you want to in these venues and not have to worry about it.
Right. I love that. So any kind of final takeaways to just share with our listeners, or just like a reminder to leave us with?
I mean, we're inspired by our customers. We're inspired by all the people who are taking this journey with us. And just know that we're creating these styles. We're designing the cans with you guys in mind. We'd love to hear from you. We're inspired by your stories every day. So please look us up, visit our website, and drop us a line.
I love it. And, looking at this mission of merging health with fun and getting out there and living your life and reducing the stigma and having a product that from start to finish is truly good for us. It's not just that it's not bad. It is truly nourishing. You drink it through the day. It is largely a significant part of your hydration that we're looking at.
It is. Yeah.
It's truly a nutritious product. So again, I'll have the link to Surreal Brewing. I'm going to have the promo code that Donna has generously given for our alcohol free for 40. You don't have to be taking the alcohol free for 40 challenge to take advantage of this, but that's sort of to help celebrate that and to support that. And I really appreciate it. And I'm grateful again for your time, sharing the insight and just kind of helping us learn more and understand more.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you for having me.
All right. I look forward to working with you.
Good luck, everybody.
Yes. Thank you. And yes, good luck to our participants coming through. And I hope that we have the opportunity to collaborate on stuff in the future too.
I would love to.
Well, what a cool story. I always love doing our behind the brands. There's always so much that we learn, but also something that's just like so inspiring when we learn that insight into what drove and what inspired that seed of an idea to become a reality. So a tremendous thank you to Donna for taking the time to sit down and share with us. I would love to hear what you think about it. I'm registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.